I'll tell you what it really is when you start to become the main income of your home. And I really feel this for a lot of people is, if I'm not being a mom or I'm not working or, that's pretty much it. Um, it's like you're not doing your purpose on this earth. It starts to
Yeah.
become so, you know, like defining.
hmm So the thing that gave you freedom is now the thing that puts you in a box, right? That puts the chains on you.
Welcome to The Ownership Game with Gary Montalvo. What would it take to get into the driver's seat of your life and leave your mark? The Ownership Game starts now.
In today's episode, we are speaking to Jewels Maven. Jewels is a beauty influencer and social seller. She has single-handedly sold over $1.5 million in skincare and cosmetics. That is a lot of lipsticks, for those of you keeping track. Jules has a lot to teach us about overcoming adversity, from leaving her awful corporate job to surviving cancer, navigating a business and life, and all of it. She has a really fascinating story that we're going to dive into. I wanted to have Jules on the show, not just because of the incredible success that she's had and everything we can learn from it, but also because she speaks very candidly about the price that she has paid for that success and how at times there wasn't balance and how at times the success was really all that defined her. And now she's on a journey where she's really finding value, not just in the success, but all areas of her life. And she's really looking at how to have balance between your health and your wellness and your success. I think it's a fascinating story and there's so much to learn from her, and she is an absolute riot. So, I never heard the story of how you got into direct sales and what were you doing before and what was the trend, how did you get into this business?
It's actually crazy. So my cousin had done it with a completely different company, and it's just something what she was doing, I just wasn't passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandmother was like, I wish there was something with like makeup because you've loved makeup since you were a little kid. And somebody was doing like a little event, online party, whatever. And I had lost my grandmother a few months prior. And I was, on the up in my corporate job. I was, getting promotions and different things, and something was missing. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
loved my corporate job, but something was just missing. And I don't know. I saw this come up one day and I was like, my grandmother wants me to do this.
Mm-hmm.
It just was something that I was like, no, my grandmother wants me to do this. And so I started with that company, and it I realized I loved doing what I was doing, but I didn't like the company I was with. Just didn't fall in line with their views and different things that they were doing. I'm very authentic, so I don't really fall in line with saying one thing and behind the scenes is another.
Mm-hmm.
And so I left with no other
But
looking into anything else.
you're still at your corporate job while you're doing this, or had
Yes.
you already left your corporate job?
No, I still at my corporate job. I was working 80 hours a week minimum. I had an
Yikes.
hour commute both ways, and I had 2 kids.
Oof. I mean, big shout out to everybody who's doing that right now and listening. Hopefully they're listening to this podcast during their 1 hour commute.
You know what's so funny is that's what I did. I would
Yeah.
watch, like, trainings and tutorials, and I would screenshot where I left off, and then on my drive home, I would listen to a podcast or, something like that, and fast forward to the part I was at, and I would pick it up on the way home.
Uh-huh. Okay. So at what point did you decide, like, how did you make the transition from your full-time corporate job to your full-time career as a influencer, makeup, skincare guru, top seller, top recruiter, all the things.
I actually got fired.
Okay.
So I was doing both for a really long time, and then I
Uh-huh.
got cancer. I had almost stage 4, stage 3B ductal carcinoma. And I was in chemo one day, and my doctor had
Mhm.
been saying, like, you need to leave because the only day my corporate job would give me off was the day I had chemo. And if you've known anybody that's gone through cancer, the day of chemo is not what's bad. It's the day after and the day after that.
Uh-huh.
And I still had that hour commute. They wouldn't let me transfer to a store closer. And so my doctor was like, "You need to leave. Like, you cannot
Okay,
be doing
hold
this."
up. So you have cancer. I just
Uh-huh.
wanna make sure I'm getting this right. So you have cancer, you're working this job. They will not give you off for treatments. They will only give you off for treatments, but not for your recovery,
Mhm.
and they won't, like, you can't, they're not making any accommodations for what you're going through. Wow, okay. I kinda wanna name
So,
drop this company now, but let's not go there. But I kinda wanna know.
yeah,
I want
it
some
was
names.
uh it was a good
Okay.
time. So one day I ran that store, and my
Mhm.
assistant at the store had called me and was like, "I just want to let you know our director's here and he's interviewing our entire store about your job performance."
Wow.
And she's like, "I think he's trying to fire you."
And you know you have cancer at this point. Like, they know
I
you
am
have
in
cancer.
chemotherapy as
Yeah,
she
and
calls me.
they know, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
alright,
So
okay.
so truly what had happened was is but little backstory is I was really sick and I didn't know what was wrong with me.
Mhm.
My doctor had thought I was depressed. That was his first thing he went to. And so he put me on meds. You've never heard this story. This is a true.
No, I have not. But, you know, the funny thing is, like, I mean, it's not funny, it's actually kinda sad that there's a whole other podcast episode that we should do on that, but it's shocking to me how that is, like, the go-to answer when they cannot figure out, like, what is wrong, or it
Now, mind
doesn't,
you, I
like,
had
fit.
that hour commute. I was pulling over on the side of the road. I would leave my house earlier because I would fall asleep while I was driving. And I would it was like I w- I was on like heavy drugs because I would be having a
Yeah.
conversation with you and I would start to fall asleep.
Uh-huh.
And so I had gone to he had put me on prescription meds. Well, one of the side effects of those meds, he had tried 3 different ones. The last one he tried, a side effect was seizures. And so I was having seizures. And the last straw was I felt one coming on, I pulled over, and I woke up 4 hours later on the side of the road.
Oh my
And
god.
so I had gone back and I had told my company this, there was a store I could actually walk to from where I lived. And the bank that they used was right next door, so it was all walking distance. And he was like,
Uh-huh.
"No, you're a liability because you're having these seizures." And my doctor at the time took me out of work, my neurologist. So I was
Uh-huh.
seeing a neurologist 2 times a week. Um, Even more than that, told me I couldn't drive. Luckily, a friend needed somewhere to stay, and I had let her stay with me. So she was with me going to
Mhm.
all of these things. And so I was out for 3 months, still didn't know what was wrong with me. They put me for sleep apnea. They did all of these things. I had so many EEGs on the
Mhm.
brain. Um, and finally, I had gone back to work and something was still wrong because they had put me on seizure meds. These seizure meds made me gain like 40 pounds in the amount of like 2, 3 weeks. I couldn't bend my elbows. I couldn't bend my knees. I was in so much pain. I went back to the doctor and I looked at her and I was like, I need to tell you something. I need to ask you if you could take my blood work. I said, for some reason, I feel I have cancer. I said, I can't tell you why I feel this way. I was like, but it is a overwhelming feeling that I have cancer. And she was like,
Really? And
she
that
was
just
like,
came to you as a download from nowhere.
yeah. I was like, I'm telling you. Because I had asked him, I was like, when can we do? I had seen, my doctor was a male. I saw a nurse practitioner this day who was another person I saw at that office. And I was like, I had asked him previously with all the depression meds he put me on. I was like, when can I be screened for breast cancer or a colonoscopy or something? And he's like, you're too young for that. He's like, you have to be 40 years old.
I had not heard this story at all. This is insane. So,
Yeah.
and nobody ran your blood work?
Well, she ran my blood work, but at that time I had so much weight gain. It had stretched my skin. I ended up having cellulitis in my legs.
Mhm.
And so she was like, "Well, your white blood cell count is elevated, but I think it's just because of the cellulitis."
Got it.
Called me a hypochondriac, sent me home. So my ex at the time, so with women, when you wear a bra, you have this underwire, and a lot
Uh-huh.
of the times they pop out and they poke you in the side. Well, I thought I
Yeah.
had scar tissue underneath. And my ex was like, "There's a lump there." I was like, "Don't tell me that. Don't send me back to the doctor. They just told me I was a hypochondriac." So I had let it go. I had gone back to work. I had the seizure meds, the cellulitis, all this crazy stuff was going on. And my lump, so I now have nothing, double mastectomy, but when I had breasts, they were like a size E. Okay?
Big
And so
girl.
when this tumor, that's what it was, had grown to where when you looked at me, you could see it. Like very small, but you could see it.
Uh-huh.
So I went back to the nurse practitioner that called me a hypochondriac. And I was like, she was like, did my exam, and she's like, it doesn't feel like cancer. But if you would like to get checked out, we'll set you up for a referral. And so at that time,
You're like, "Yes,
um,
please."
yeah, I'm thinking nothing's wrong though, because I'm a
Uh-huh.
hypochondriac, nothing's
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I scheduled the appointment, but I ended up getting the flu years ago that the vaccine like didn't work on. And like people were getting very ill and told to like stay home if you have all this stuff. So I had to reschedule my appointment for like 2, 3 weeks out. So I did, and at that time, you can now see this tumor
It's
looking at
growing
me,
that
and it is
fast.
bulging.
Okay. Wow.
So I go to the doctor, and I brought my daughter with me because I thought nothing was wrong. I thought it was just going to be a checkup. And the head nurse calls me in her office, and she's like, "Do you have someone to watch her?" I was like, "No." She goes, "Well, you need a biopsy done. She cannot be here for a mammogram or a biopsy. It's too much." And I said, "Well, can I schedule it out?" And she goes, "Yeah, if it's tomorrow." So my work is already giving me a super hard time because I had been out
Mhm.
with the seizures. Then I got the flu. And I was like, I cannot miss work. Like, I can only do my appointments on my day off. Like, I can't. She goes, "Then I need you to call someone because this needs to be done right now." They stayed late. The whole staff stayed late so I could get this done. So God bless my mom. She comes running to get my daughter, has to pick my other daughter up from school and takes them home. And so the doctor called me in. She did my mammogram and she has to take pictures before she does the biopsy. And she's like, "Okay." She brings up my tumor on the screen and it looks like a black heart. That's exactly what it looked like. And she goes, "We rate these as a scale of 1 to 5." She goes, 1 meaning like you're good, there's nothing there, keep doing your home self checks. 2 meaning it looks like there's a start of a cyst, but keep an eye on it. 3 meaning that we'll schedule you out for 6 months. It's nothing we need to handle right now. 4 meaning we have to schedule a biopsy within the next few months. and a 5 meaning there's a 95% chance that this is cancer and we need to move very quickly. And she swiveled around in her chair and she looked me dead in the eye and she goes, and you rated a 5. And at this point, I thought everything was hunky dory, that I was a
Mm-hmm.
hypochondriac up until this moment. And so I'm just staring at her and tears are falling down my face. And my doctor's office was across the street from a college. So the nurse came in. She's like, I was wondering when this was going to hit ya, that this was serious. And she's like, let me give you some tissues. I'll give you a minute. I was like, I need several minutes. But I walked out and I looked out the window and I saw all these college kids dancing and having fun. And I can hear the music and the laughter. And I was like, life is still going on. And either
Mm-hmm.
I stop and let this control me, because it's not like stopping anyone else's world. And so from that moment I was like, nope, here we go. And it's been a
You,
ride ever since.
you put on your big girl pants. Wow.
Mm.
Um, there's so many different ways we can go with this thing now. Okay. So, obviously you're okay. So I think
Yep.
we need for the listeners just to, you already said you had a double mastectomy.
I
Um,
just hit
eh,
5 years cancer free.
Amazing. Congratulations. That's so
Thank you.
beautiful. Um, so let's go back to how we started, right, with your
Oh,
job. So at what point here did you transition? Because and just so you know, I just think, I mean, it sounds like you didn't have a choice. You had to kind of leap. But I feel like a lot of people get stuck in making that move,
oh, am I
right? How
lost?
do I leave my corporate job that's a steady salary, steady benefits,
You
all
were
this
gone for a
to,
minute, Gary. You were gone. We were
Okay, am I
frozen.
back?
We're gonna have to cut that out. I grabbed my vape. I was like, okay, we're stuck here. I don't know what's
And I was
happening.
watching you like, "Oh, okay, we're vaping on camera. Okay. Yeah,
No,
great."
I was like, okay, we're frozen. We're stuck.
Um, okay, let me back up. So, so let's go back to how you made that transition again, because I mean, I know for you, it sounds like you had a life circumstance and you had the company sounds like they pushed you out, right?
Well, at
But
that
you
chemo
could,
appointment, she had told me, I think he's trying to fire you. And I just started crying. And my doctor came out and he's like, what's wrong? And I was like, my job. And he's like, you're done. He's like, you're done. He's like, you're going on medical leave. You're not dealing, like, you cannot deal with this right now. So he took me out. And then a week before I was able to go back to my corporate job, they were like, no, it's too late. And they let me
hmm
go.
and they let you go. Okay, so you being faced with, so at what part of your treatment is this? You're
This
still going, or you're
is,
still undergoing treatment at this point, I would imagine.
yep.
Yeah.
I,
S-
I still had many sessions to go.
So so now they let you go. Are you going back to work, different job? Are you like, how did you decide I'm going full in with my skincare? Are you with Lime Life, the company that you're with now?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so you're with Lime Life. You're doing your thing. How did you decide, okay, I'm gonna go full in on this thing,
Well,
or I'm gonna go back to work somewhere
this is
else? Like,
the craziest part is when I was taken out for the 3 months for the seizures.
mm-hmm,
I had an overwhelming feeling. It was from God. And he told me, he's like, I don't want you to go back to this job.
mm-hmm,
And I didn't listen. And I went back. And so when in those 3 months I was off, the only income I had was Line Life, was the job I was at. And so I am a worker. I've always been somebody who's had like a couple jobs. I had a teenage pregnancy. So while I was in high school, I needed to make my job and graduate, and I had a child. So
mm-hmm.
I was always very driven. And so when I was taken out of work and I was sleeping all the time, when I was awake, I was like, what do I do? So I went full bore with Lime Life, and yeah, I just anytime I was awake, like I kept busy. My kids loved doing makeup with me. They loved having fun. So I kept going with that. And then when I was taken out of work, it just
You
it
just
just I just kept going.
okay. So cut to how long has it been? How many years?
Oh my gosh, I'm not good at math. 2017? 16,
17.
one of those.
Okay.
We'll blame the chemo
So
for why I don't
so about
remember.
6 years
Mhm.
in Lime Life.
Mhm.
And what you've accomplished is pretty remarkable. Like, for context for people listening, so you're in your you're at the top rank of the company.
Mhm.
You are top seller, top recruiter consistently for several years. You have surpassed and broken all kinds of sales records, and I mean, like, by, like, a lot. And you are definitely by far one of the top performing beauty guys, distributors, not just in this company but globally, right? When you hold up your report, so what you've accomplished is quite remarkable. I just want people to know that the magnitude of what you've accomplished. You are probably in the 0.05% of people in your industry.
Yeah.
you know do you feel like, do you get that? I guess my question is, do you
No.
no.
No, I'm so bad when it comes to things like that. I don't know. Like you hear so much as you grow up and you become an adult. You hear it from when you're a kid. It's like, okay, great, but you could have done better.
Mm.
And so that's kind of something I've been working on where it's like, just take a minute. Like, take a minute and see what you've
Yeah,
done.
let's back up, okay? Because I think that I want to just talk about your success and what do you attribute it to? What, because, yeah, it's just pretty remarkable. Like, what do you think is your secret, your key to success?
Um, faith, and that's really it. Yeah, faith in God, that I'm surrounded with the people I'm meant to be, faith that, you know, people will like me. It's so funny to say this because I'm all over, social media, but I'm very insecure. Like
Mm.
my first mindset when with you was like, he doesn't like me, because it's so much easier to say, well, they don't like me, and find out they do, than to think someone does and they really don't, to
Mhm.
me. Um, and so it's just, faith that the right people find me, for the beginning of this journey, I tried to be the person everybody likes. I had the backdrop up, and oh my gosh, and I dressed a specific way, and my hair always had to be like perfectly done. Um, until one day it just got exhausting. It was when I got sick.
Mhm.
I was too tired to put the backdrop up. I was too tired to make my bed. And I was like, you know what? This is where I'm at. Like I can't do this. If I can't go to my actual job where where I have to do that,
Mhm.
I'm not doing that here, because I just don't have the energy to do it. Um, and so that's really what it became, that I'm not going to be for everybody. I'm very loud. I swear like a trucker. I've watched my mouth on this. You're welcome. Um, just saying.
We
Um,
could bleep.
bleep. Um, and I just had to be okay with just being myself.
Mhm.
And that's really where people falter a lot, I feel, in this industry and in social media, because I feel a lot of the time people put on a facade of, like, maybe you're the positive person all the time on
Mhm.
social media, and you're having a bad day, and so now you won't show up. Mm. And that bad day turns into a bad month, turns into a bad year. Um, Not always, for people that can easily turn that around, but for a lot of people, life happens. And so when you're not in a positive space now you can't do your job because you've turned it
Mhm.
into only being this. And sometimes it's not going to be that way. And you have to be okay with those seasons and understand that no matter what, like, you're enough. Like, even in your worst moments, you're doing enough. Like, you're doing enough. You don't
Yeah.
have to be somebody else.
So, is it fair to say that so you talked about you struggle with feeling confident sometimes or, feeling secure. And you mentioned, that there was like the from the past, the ghost, the being told you're not good enough. I think is it fair to say that that also is part of your success because you're like pushing yourself to overcome that to prove something in some way like that, like almost that negativity also fueled you in a way.
Yes, for sure. It's kind of like the age old saying, like, if you're not first, you're last. Um,
Mhm.
which is appropriate in specific things in my mind, where it's like, if I'm training, like, I got to be first. But when the race comes and you're not, like, you still put your all into it.
Mhm.
And so I feel like specific things, like the whole "you can do better" attitude, is beneficial in ways of you can do better. Like, there is always things you can improve on. However, but when it takes over your whole success or your whole accomplishment is when it
Yeah.
becomes an issue.
Yeah. You've been and if we can get a little deeper, I know that you've been on a journey over the last few months, like this all of this success and all of these accomplishments and all of this kind of came to a head for you, right?
Yeah.
And you've had a big year. Excuse me. You've had a big year. You got married. Your partner, your husband came with a family as well. So now your family's bigger um in life, and life is lifing. So you've had this big year, and how would you describe like what it coming to a halt for you, like that moment when you were like, okay, something's got to change here. Like,
So I got married, and when I was getting married, your insurance transfers.
mhm,
So my insurance went up, like, I don't know, like $600, like mine that I
mhm,
had before I got married. And so when it went up, I had put a card on file and it expired. So therefore my insurance could not be billed and it goes to the
mm,
next month.
mhm,
Well, the next month, my bank account got hacked. And so when it got hacked, I also missed my insurance payment.
mm,
And the next month, when it came through that I didn't have any insurance, I was getting married in like 2.5 weeks. So I was like, I'm not doing this again. Like, I'll just wait until I get married. Well, through all of that, I have a medicine. It's called Synthroid or levothyroxine. It's for your thyroid. And I don't take a normal dose. So many times for people, they go with like what we'll say like 10 micrograms. Well, because of cancer and everything it did on my body and chemo, I take 400. So
Mhm.
I take a very large dose of this for me to be able to function, I guess. Now, at this time, I didn't know this. I was like, oh, it is what it is. Um, and I had let myself go for a long time. So I guess it was that my health came first to everybody. First, it still does. Like anytime I don't know, I'm like, wow, I've been really tired for the last couple of weeks. People are like, have you gone to the doctor? I'm like, oh my
Mhm.
no, 5 kids and I'm tired. Um, and so when it came to my medicine and it came to me feeling really off, I didn't tell anybody. You know, I didn't tell anybody. And so I basically went 2.5, 3 months cold turkey of not having this medicine, and
Mm.
it caused complete dysfunction throughout my whole body, my mental
Mhm.
health, my body, everything. I literally went to the ER because I was so scared. And he was like, "You're lucky you're not dead."
Yikes.
He was like, "This is not something to like play around with." I said, I wasn't playing. I just put myself last. To be honest, I was like, "Oh, it'll be
Mhm.
fine." Like we have all this stuff going on and we have 5 kids and, I have my businesses and, it just, and we're getting married. So that's on the forefront. And I was last,
Yeah.
not on purpose. It's just the way like the way I'm used to operating, the way many mothers are very used to operating is, I'm last.
Yeah. And I think you push yourself pretty hard in your business as well. So I think as entrepreneurs, it's easy to fall under this trap of like not taking care of yourself so well because we love what we do, right? So often it doesn't feel like work, right? Um, you're probably still putting 80 hours, but it's yours, right? It feels different. You're getting acknowledged differently. You're getting different results.
Mhm.
And the payoff is different. Usually the more you put in, the more you get back. So it's easy to fall under this trap and get to a place where you realize, wow, I'm really not taking care of myself here. I'm really not honoring my body. I'm really not honoring my health.
I'll tell you what it really is when you start to become the main income of your home. And I really feel this for a lot of people is it starts to feel like, well, I was actually told from a previous relationship, but that's a whole nother podcast day. Um, it starts to feel like that's all you're meant for. So when you're not working and when you take time away and when if I'm not being a mom or I'm not working or, that's pretty much it. Um, it's like you're not doing your purpose on this earth. It starts to
Yeah.
become so, you know, like defining.
hmm So the thing that gave you freedom is now the thing that puts you in a box, right? That puts the chains on you.
Yeah. And it's so funny. It's very rare to find like people who, own the company, different things being like, you need to take a break. you know,
hmm
just take a break, just sit down. Um, and I don't know. I just never listened.
So talk to me about since that moment. I mean, I know a little bit about your journey and the work you've been doing, but since that moment, you've really been at work at introducing balance back into your life, if it was ever there. So talk a little bit about that and what's that been like?
That is probably the most difficult. this is probably I don't even say that, this, because it's current. Probably one of the most difficult things I go through, because I still struggle with that mindset. I still struggle with, putting myself last, and it's
Mhm.
really, I feel like in anything it's more of a self-awareness. It's like, "Oh, I'm doing that again." Um because in all actuality, like, I do still do that. There's
Mhm.
not a lot of balance. I'm definitely better. Quite frankly, it's a workaholic. Let's call it what it really is. And
Okay.
it's an addiction of sorts, because I mean, not of sorts, it just is. And I feel like people, they hear workaholic and they're like, oh, that's such a good thing. And it's
Mhm.
not. It's not. Like, you find your purpose in something instead of yourself, and it's not good. Um, but I have been doing a lot better. I have, my schedule that I keep. I have severe ADD on top of all of this. So, like, my
Mhm.
mom's always, she still makes fun of me actually today. She's like, "You can see where you've been." She's like, "Because I'll see the way your mind works, is you picked something up over here, and then you went and cleaned
Mhm.
something up over here, but you set that down." And she's like, "And it's just, you've been that way since you were a kid." Um, and so I've really had to kind of buckle down and create a lot of boundaries with
Mhm.
my children,
Mm.
which is so hard as a mom, because you don't ever, I can't say you don't ever want to tell your kids no, because you do. But when it comes to, like, oh, mom, I have a game tonight. Or, oh, I have a birthday party I have to go to. I forgot to tell you. And me looking at them being like, you don't know. And that's so, like, it seems so harsh. But we have a family schedule where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, you know, um, we have kids ranging from 16, 14, 9, 8, and 2.
Mhm.
And they're all busy. All of them do multiple sports, clubs, activities, friends. Um, and so I'm like, no. Like, I run a multitude of businesses. I also have a 2-year-old here. And so it doesn't work that way. And we just bought a house. So what they're used to is living 5 minutes from, their school. And now we live 20 minutes away from their school now. And I'm like, listen, things have changed. And instead of, like, making it change for them, I tried to change myself and my schedule to keep it the same for them. And it was burning me out. So I
Yeah.
tell them, like, if you have games, concerts, activities, birthday parties, if it's not on that schedule, you don't have it. So it's teaching them a sense of organization,
I
responsibility as well.
I love this so much. I don't know that every parent listening would have the courage and the discipline to do that. But I think it really teaches them something. It teaches them accountability. It teaches them responsibility. It teaches them consequences. I love this so much. I really acknowledge you for that. That's very courageous, because I feel like
Part.
parents are under such pressure nowadays. Like when I look at what excuse me, just like like even birthday parties, I'm like, I look what parents have to do now just to. I was like, oh, birthday parties did not look like that when I was a kid. Like
No,
now, it's
it
like
is,
you
and I actually, it's social media, because you see one person do something,
1000%.
and it's just this craziness, and my kids try to do that. They're like, well, so and so doesn't have to do chores. And I'm like, that's really great. They don't live here.
Go see if they want, if they have, they can take an extra.
Yeah, and my kids have really come accustomed to it. They're actually really grateful for it, because they're like, they know what's coming, like what's going on when they come home. They're like, "Oh,
Mhm,
I
mhm,
didn't know 3 kids had something going on. Oh, this is a game. We're all going to this, right?" Yup.
mhm.
Yup, and it's all color coordinated.
I love it.
So,
I
we
love
know
it.
which kid, times everything, and I do that with my jobs and stuff too. It's all color coordinated. This is what's going on. And sometimes, I have to look at people and be like, "Yeah, no, I'm sorry, that's not what we're doing."
Yeah. Okay. Anything else that you've been doing to support you in this
I'm actually
transition?
reading. So I put my phone down at night and I read
Mm.
3 chapters of a fiction book, which really helps me sleep because I go to bed thinking of this
Yeah.
book and everything that I read. And so that's probably the best thing that I've done is
Mhm.
reading.
Yeah. I love that so much because we just always have these things in front of us. Like we're always like so I love the idea that you're making your brain work differently
Yeah.
as you wind down, as you unplug from that. So, so good. Okay, so as we start to really wrap up and there's a lot of people that listening that I think are going to really identify with it with a lot of what you're talking about in terms of not having boundaries and working yourself to death, working yourself to a point of not not really feeling like you're there, you know. What advice do you have for them as, they're if they're facing the same thing? Like what words do you have for them?
Um, I think it's just really giving yourself a lot of grace because there are times that I very much mess up where I'm like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I gave into that, I probably shouldn't have." Or, "Oh, it's 11 o'clock at night and I'm still awake doing work and I was supposed to go to bed 2 hours ago."
Mhm.
It's really understanding that you cannot live your life how you have for such a long amount of time and then automatically change everything about it. Like, if you are a workaholic, you
S
have to start with steps and being
So
like,
good.
this is, I'm going to work on going to bed earlier. And that's what you work on first. And understand that if you want to wake up, like I used to wake up late in the day and now I'm getting up at 5 and doing yoga and reading a self-help book and having my coffee before my kids wake up. And that was probably a solid year of working to that because you can't go to bed
Mm.
every day at 2 in the morning and then all of a sudden be like, I'm going to bed at 9 and waking up at 5. Like, you have to give yourself grace of, okay, like, I'm still doing it. Like, still sometimes I sleep in, listen, a lot of the time. I'll sleep in past 5, but I still wake up, even if it's 7 o'clock, and I'm like, I'm a morning person. I'm a 5 a.m. person. Like, I say that to
Mhm.
myself, and it's getting in the habit. So I go to the gym too, and sometimes I'm sick. I don't want to go to the gym, but I'll go to the gym and sit outside. So I keep in that routine of being like, no, I might not be able to do this today, but
Wow.
I'm going to sit here and I'm still like I'm at the gym. I don't feel well. I can't breathe right, like something's wrong, but I keep in that routine because that means something to me. Like, it's a little bit
Mhm.
of control in a life that's uncontrollable. So,
So good. There's so many gems there. I love that idea of creating structure, creating control in the chaos. It's something that I know, you know, that really works for you, I think. Even with all your success, even with you're in a position where you're constantly training and coaching other people and helping them grow their businesses. You're a mom, so you're in a constant training, leadership position in that. But you're very coachable. You are one of the most coachable people that even in your success, even in your in your yeah, as you mastery of sorts, you still stay humble, you still stay in a question of learning, you still stay in a question of how can I keep growing? And you take the coaching and you implement it immediately. Like you go, "Oh, I got it." The moment you see something, you put it in right away. You don't like wait, you don't like, "Oh, okay, got it." And you implement it. And I think that's one of your superpowers. I really do. I think it really supports you in your evolution and your growth and it keeps you, but I think it has to do with your humbleness too. I think that's
Um,
probably what.
I've gotten to the point where I've been like, I don't need to go to this training. I don't need to do this. Like, I'm good at this. I don't like myself when I'm like that because there's always
Mhm.
something to learn and there's always something, like I said, there's always something to work on. This is one of those moments where that
Yeah.
phrase of you can always do better comes really into play and it's an appropriate moment because when you think you know everything, you're missing out on so many things. Like you're missing out on life and experiences and fine tuning. There's just a lot with that. Like I've been there. I've gotten cocky before. I've
Mhm.
been uncoachable before, but I didn't like how I felt. And like I don't know, I do therapy and I do counseling and I do stuff like that and my counselor says that too. And I was like, at the end of the day, I don't have to live. Like let's say my husband and I got a divorce, knock on wood, we won't. But let's say we did. At the end of the day, if he's not here, he's not the one I'm worried about fixing. It's me. And that doesn't mean bending to everybody else. That doesn't mean changing for everybody else. That means, can I live with myself, with what I'm doing, who I am, and the person I am every day?
Mhm.
And with many things, yeah. With many things, yes. But there are some things that I sit back and I'm like, ooh, I don't really like how I reacted to that. Or I don't really like how I
Mhm.
handled that. Um, And I don't give 'em the excuses of like, "Oh, it's because I went through this." No, I went through that. That's not who I am today. So I'm very open to those things because at the end of the day, the only person who's really gonna be there for me and sees everything that nobody else sees is me.
Yeah. You got to be with yourself wherever you go.
Yeah. I don't know. That's so important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get it. I get it. And it's not it's I don't want to say it's rare, but not everybody has that ability. I'll say that. Not everybody has the self-awareness, the humility, the it is, especially, the listen, the more successful we become, the more training we are, the harder we are to train. Because the more you know, then we become smart rats, And even I have those moments where I'm like, all right, where are we going with this? What's the end result? Like I'm trying to get ahead of where the content is going or where the training is going or
Mhm.
like what's a goodie? Like, okay, 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 okay.
And then it's the same, and
And
you're
you
like, "I knew it." And you
or like but even because I think part of it is that there's just so much also coming at us nowadays. There's so much that I think part of it is just like, is this worth me tuning into? Is this worth me focusing my attention because we're rationing our attention off so much now because we're constantly like, you know.
I
So I
do
think it's some
that.
of that.
I like to listen to opposing opinions and sides and ideals. Um, because sometimes they they justify me in thinking like, nope, I still don't agree with that. Like, nope, you didn't. This is not changing my mind. But sometimes I'm like, I don't agree with that, but you just help me understand where people come from. So
Hmm.
I do. I don't know. I always like learning, unless it's math.
So what's next for Jewels Maven?
I'm really running towards, praying for, hoping for to be like on a magazine cover.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Uh
love that.
reason being is, I hear all the time is like, oh, people say a lot because, I have no breasts, I'm plus size. I'm actually mid-size now. Thank you, Jim. But they're like, you promote an unhealthy lifestyle. And I'm like, no. Like, I had to love myself where I was to understand that I needed help, to understand that I deserved more. But if you're sitting here, telling people like it's a shame to be the way that they are,
Hmm.
all they do is sit in shame. They're not like, I could do better. They go into the gym disliking themselves. So they don't really want to go back because it's now a piece that they're like ashamed of. Um, and so yeah, I really want to show like my scars and my stretch marks as a mom and my mid-size, self, and really give that message like to go for it. To not settle short that your imperfections are perfect people. Um, and that you can't let like your past and your past situations define where you are. There's always room for growth.
Yeah. Well, any editors out there listening to Jules, she's got a great story and she's ready for your magazine cover.
Yes,
Reach out to her. Jules, you are lovely. It's been such an honor to have you on the show. We will have you back again and again because there's so many things that we can talk about. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
it is.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Bye.
Bye.
Jules' success is absolutely extraordinary and so inspiring. And it also serves as a cautionary tale of what can happen when we let success become our end game, when success becomes our sense of purpose, when success becomes a thing that identifies us or that heals us, completes us. Success can never be the thing that heals us, or our healing will always depend on what we can achieve, what we have, or what we can buy. Now, don't get me wrong, success can often fulfill us, it can often expand us, teach us, and those things can be healing in itself. But anytime your self-worth, your value, your healing depends on an outside entity, you will always be a prisoner. You will always be at the effect of something. When you can take ownership over those things and you take ownership over your healing, regardless of what's in your bank account, regardless of what job you have, regardless of what relationship you have, then that's true freedom. That's true freedom. That's true ownership. And when you have that, you can stay empowered during any adversity, any outcome, any result that you have in your life. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Ownership Game with your host, Gary Montalvo. Make sure to like and comment on your favorite podcast platform, as well as subscribe so that you never miss an episode.